All right, good morning. I think we're going to go ahead and get this webinar rolling. For those that don't know, I'm Bryce Wilson, the Administrator of Finance and Organizational Services for the Department of Education. Today with me, I have Bill Biven, budget and AFR expert, and Janice Ehret, similar. Most of you probably know those two from Budget Help. Kevin Lyons is our new Director of School Finance. What many of you know as the State Aid Director. He took Jen's position. Jen, for those that I guess haven't heard, is been promoted up into another position here at the department. So Kevin is our new expert in TIOSA. And then we have a new auditor with us this year who's going to talk a little bit about the budget document, is Dakota Christensen. So today we're going to start, and Dakota's going to start here in just a second, but we're going to walk through all the budget information you need to know, some updates on TIOSA, the ESSA conversion and AFR update information. Basically try and get you anything you need to know as you go through the summer and get ready for all the finance stuff that's going to be coming up. We know that's that finance season is quickly approaching. Probably many of you are well on your way on your budgets already. And if not, I'm sure we'll be hearing from you here shortly. So, and with that too, I'm just going to give you a warning. Janice said I didn't get any jokes today. She wanted to tell the jokes. So if they're bad, that's her fault, not mine today. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Dakota and let him start walking through the budget information for you. We'll note too that we are recording this for anybody that may want to go back and missed something we said or want to hear it again. It'll be posted on our website probably in a week or so. Is that
sure?
Okay. Out on the webpage. The slides are available out there on the webinar webpage. You can get to it off of the front page of the FOS homepage if you haven't found that yet.
Okay. Ready for me?
Yep, go ahead.
All right, as he said, my name is Dakota Christensen. I'm actually with the State Auditor's Office, and I'm just an auditor in charge. You might know Deanne Hefner. She is currently out in North Platte with another budget workshop for counties. So those are our contact information if you do have questions after this, or you just think of a question later on, you can email us. The phone number for our office is there. That will get you to the main front office, and there are multiple people in our office that can answer questions for budget. So you can ask for us or anyone that might be able to help you if we're out of the office. And then there's a website for our office that will get you to the budget documents, as I'm sure most of you are aware. We've already had some people pull the documents, as we know, and I'll get to that a little later. First part is budget amendments. Most of you probably are aware there might be some new superintendents, new business managers, so I'll just go over some stuff. Might be repetitive to some, but it's good information to know. Amendments must be made by the end, before the end of your fiscal year. Basically, that's to ensure that you are looking at your budgeted expenditures to see if you do need to do some type of amendment. If you do need to do one, you'll have this process is pretty similar to as what you did for like originally approving the budget. So you would have to have a public hearing, approve the amendment. You would also have to do a public notice of that public hearing. That notice would actually be very similar to what you did when you originally did it, but then you also have to include the original budgeted amounts and then your amended amounts, and then also why you are amending that budget. We do have instructions and examples out on our website. And later in the PowerPoint, there are print screens of our website, so I'll point out where you can find that information. So I recommend if you are gonna amend it and you need to do that public notice, it's easier to take your original budget filing, copy what was originally published and paste that as values right below that template, then come back and start entering your updated amended amounts. And then those new amounts get carried forward to your new public notice. So that way you don't have to worry about links getting deleted or anything like that. So. Next part, there is a new LB that came into play. It's not really changing too much. It does add some requirements, so I'll just go through what is required. It requires schools to pass a resolution or ordinance for their tax requests. Technically, it is for that this new resolution is only for when you are increasing your tax request amount, not your levy. So it's the total property tax. For most school districts, your tax requests will probably go up. So this will probably apply to most of you. Our office has decided to only put out the one example of the resolution. If there is a school district out there that is not actually increasing their tax request or decreasing it, we do still recommend that you do this resolution each year just to have it in your records. And then each year as you go through these budget filings, that you don't accidentally forget it the one year you're actually increasing your tax amount. So this resolution actually will include the following things. It has to include your school name, the amount of your property tax request. There are 4 different statements that are required, and those are in the example on our website, but I'll briefly explain what they are. A statement that says the total value differs from the prior year value by a percentage. The second is that the tax rate, which would levy the same amount of property taxes as last year, when multiplied by the new total assessed value of property, would be a dollar amount per $100 assessed value. The third statement, the name of your school district proposes an adopted property tax amount, which would cause the tax rate to be whatever it is. And then the fourth statement is based on the proposed property tax request and change in other revenue. The total operating budget of the school district will exceed last year's by whatever percentage. I will explain operating budget. It is just your total budgeted disbursements and transfers from this year. So it is a new statement, but that's what that means. The resolution also requires the record of vote for passing the resolution. So that's the resolution. LB also requires the property tax hearing notice to include these 3 items. So it requires you to have your current and prior year valuations and the percent change. The budget document does include this template, so it has all these 3 requirements in it. The second requirement is percentage of change in tax rate, and then the percentage change in the operating budget. I'm sure some of you guys that have already pulled the budget document, maybe yesterday because we got them uploaded this week. They are out there. You might have noticed that our calculation on the public notice the calculation was incorrect. We got that changed late yesterday, so some of you might still have a budget document might still include that. I'll point that out when I go to the print screen where that calculation is. So I recommend double checking your file to make sure it's calculating correctly, or pulling a new document which have been uploaded. That's the LB 103. So if you have any questions, can they ask as I go?
They can type in the questions in the question box. We'll monitor them there and let you know.
Yep. So if you can't think of a question right now, or if you are starting to do your budget after this teleconference, just email us and we can hopefully answer your question there. There are 2 hearings for when you do your budget. One is for the actual budget hearing, and then one for your tax requests. Most entities and school districts do a combo hearing, so it's at the same time and it takes care of that. So nothing really changed there. All right, so this is the notice for the special hearing to set your tax request. And this is where I was saying that calculation was incorrect. So at the very top, right after it kind of describes where the public hearing will be, it says property valuations. It says 2018, 2019 to 20, that has a percent change. That was originally incorrect on our document that we uploaded early this week. It has been changed, so that's where you would want to make sure that calculation is correct before you actually publish. The rest of this is the information that is required. So at the very far right, you notice there's a change in tax rate and change in operating budget. Those are added to be in compliance with that new LB. So all this is populated as you fill out your budget document. I believe you can overwrite information, but it is linked originally, so. All right, this is a print screen of our office's website. So if you go to auditors.nebraska.gov, and then on the left-hand side under Charlie Jansen's photo, there is a link that says local governments. If you click that, it'll drop down and it'll give you an option to click on for budget documents. And then that screen will have a big orange button that says 2019, 2020 budget docs. Click that, and then this is what screen will show up. And then you can see where the first green arrow is pointing, there's school district budget forms. So for the ones that haven't pulled their document yet, this is where you would go. And then you'll be able to download that document. And of course, that will include all the pages. It will include your notices that you need to do, your trade name forms, interlocal forms. And so.
Dakota, you have a couple questions.
Okay.
First one is, do we have to key in the 18-19 operating budget off of the 18-19 adopted form from last year?
Correct. So there'll be an basic input tab in the spreadsheet, and you'll enter your information, and one of those will be your prior valuation. So and it'll be from your prior budget.
Okay. The next one is, when the change in tax rate on the right column goes from $0 to a new number, an example, special building fund, no 100% increase shows up.
So it still shows the divide error.
Well, probably because zeros.
Zeros, that's what I was
Yeah.
thinking. I will probably let Deanne know that, see if we can get that corrected, but I believe you can override it. So just put 100% when you go from 0 to a new dollar amount. So I think that's the best route. If I will let Deanne know, and if you can't do that yourself, then we need to get that corrected. So I will let her know to check. Is there another question? Are we good? Any more questions? Are you good?
Nope,
Okay.
good. Thank you.
All right. The second arrow is pointing below, so we'll go to the next screen. So below the forms are some additional instructions and a budget timeline and other like sample forms. So that resolution that I was talking about will be under the link that says sample forms. It is, I believe, the 6th page of that, and it will have blanks for you to fill in, and it has all the required information. Then it has other documents that might not apply to school districts, but that's where you'll find that resolution. Then if you're curious, there are other just significant state statutes that you might want to just glance at. There are additional instructions specifically for school districts. So there's just a bunch of good information. But of course, if you look through that and you still aren't understanding what's required or what you need to do, certainly just give our office a call.
Okay, we got another question. All right, on the basic data input page under prior year property tax request, should we enter the total for all funds or just the general fund?
The prior year property tax request you have before. What page is it? I would believe that would be your total property tax request, not just for the general.
So all
Deanna and I talked about that.
All.
That is all.
Yeah,
funds?
Yeah,
I would
all
believe so.
And do we include the county's 1%?
Commission in that? Yes, it'd be your total tax request before any commission is taken by the county.
So it would include 1%.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it automatically.
So yeah, I believe it would be just your total tax request from that first page of prior year budget, which would be before the county has removed their 1% commission. Good. Any more questions?
No, we're good for now.
All right. All right, here are some dates to remember. August 20th is when the county assessor will get your valuations, or they should have them certified by then. So if you haven't received your valuation by the 20th of August, call your county and say, or call your counties and ask them, where is it? And hopefully they will have it done. If they haven't got it done, then just let our office know. September 20th is when the budget document is due to our office, the Auditor of Public Accounts, and then the county clerk's office. Also, if you have to, the budget document, the LC2 form, if you have special grants on your budget, I believe you need to provide the special grants list. I believe the checklist on your budget doc will include all the other documents that would need to be included. And we would like a copy of the publisher's affidavit showing when the published notices were done. Yeah, certificate evaluation that would need to be sent in. Yeah, I think. And also, just so you know, that interlocal and joint public agency form is due September 20th. It's not due as part of the budget, but the statute has changed in the past that it now is due at the same time. So just might as well file it at the same time you're doing your budget. October 13th is the last day to file a property tax request with the county board. This is essentially the last day you can actually amend your tax request. After that, the county board will set it. And then after that, the only way your levy can be changed if there is an error. So say September 20th, you say you want $1.5 million, and that's what you approved. But then the 1st of October, you're like, we actually will need to amend it lower or amend it up. You actually will then say you need 1.6 million. That's the date you have to meet that by. And then if you do like 1.6 million by October 13th, and then after that, you're like, oh, I actually needed more. That is actually too late to change it unless you found an error in your calculation. So yeah, November 5th is the last day to correct a levy that has been set. The only way that can be corrected is if it's an error that was made, and then it's noticed during the review process. So on to budget errors. They're not very uncommon. So there are items that they happen. So you're like, oh, if I make an error, do I have to amend your budget? So there are certain situations where you don't have to amend your budget. If your total amount budgeted, which is your total, our office has interpreted that as your total amount budgeted for disbursements, is not changed more than 1%, you do not, and then as long as you are changing it and letting us know within 30 days of that, when you actually discover it, then you don't need to, or are not. If you're not increasing your property tax, you don't have to amend it. If you do increase your property taxes, you do have to amend your budget. And then also that third point is just making sure, as those two, if you meet within 30 days and you let us know, no amendment is needed. However, if there's an error and it's past 30 days, the statute actually, I think, implies that you have to amend it. Is there a question?
Just a doorbell when people join.
Gotcha. So it's a little confusing sometimes. Just call our office. Yeah, if total budget disbursements don't change more than 1%, don't need to amend it. If the error doesn't increase your property taxes, then no amendment is needed, but just make sure if you notice it, get the change done, sent to our office within 30 days, or if our office notices the error, then you have 30 days to get it changed. And usually if it's small, we can correct it on our side and nothing needs to be done after that. So if you do have an error and you need to correct it, send to our office and the clerk. Let's see. So if you have a public hearing and then it's noted that you need to actually change something, change a budgeted disbursements or tax request, and that you make that change and then you get approved at that same meeting, you have 20 days to publish a summary of the changes. The summary is supposed to show what was originally published and what the board had actually approved. If you do that, then no further process is needed. If you don't meet that, then essentially you would need to amend your budget to get it approved legally. So let's see if I can maybe word that a little better for. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. So yeah, you have 20 days from your meeting, basically, if what you approved in that meeting was different than from what you published. And as long as you get that publication out there in 20 calendar days, I think it's calendar days, I'd have to double check, but you'll be good. After 20 days, you would have to amend it, or not amend it, you would have to basically reapprove it, go through that same process again. So it's best to get the publish the summary within 20 days. That way you're not having to hold another meeting and also publish another notice. Last thing is when you submit to our website, you can file it electronically or file it in the mail. I'm not sure if any school districts will file it hard copy. You guys require electronic, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
So since you're filing it with Department of Ed electronically, you might as well file it with our office electronically. You will receive an email confirmation back. Save that confirmation. It will have a number because our office receives budgets for all political subdivisions. So that is about 2,500 entities. School districts are a good chunk of that, but it's still a small percent. So our office might miss something getting it filed in. So if we contact you and say we haven't actually received it, then you can be like, no, I actually did submit it. Here's my email confirmation with my number. Then we can go back to our internet and look at all the filings. And then as long as there was no issue with uploading it, then we can just pull it right then and there. If you mail it and we, with the post office trying to handle that much mail and our office trying to receive that much mail and enter it into our system, the chance of a budget getting misplaced does happen. It's not common. There are a few that we have issues with receiving, and then people say they have sent it in, but we have no confirmation because they said they sent it through the mail. So recommend electronically and keeping that confirmation. Any questions? Anything from you guys to add? All right, that's mine.
You want to transition, Bryce?
How'd I do?
Right.
How'd I do? Good.
Good.
All right, good morning, everyone. We'll transition into a little bit of the State Aid 101 TIOSA document. As Bryce mentioned, I've been working here for a little over 2 months now. Spent 15 years as a superintendent in the state of Nebraska, so been able to jump in running and trying to make updates to make a smooth transition for new superintendents, tenured superintendents, and business managers alike, bookkeepers as well, to ensure that we can answer all your questions dealing with state aid. The first 2 slides that I'm going to present, the reason I'm putting these up front is there's some due dates that are going to be pertinent for some school districts. The first one is the lump sum payment. Basically, after we did the 1920 certification, we go back and do the prior year's correction. And with the change in the local effort rate, it affected 141 school districts as far as prior year correction. And of those school districts, there will be 96 school districts that are equal to or greater than 1,000 on that correction. So on or before the 15th, we will notify those 96 school districts. Those school districts must respond to us by August 15th. And then we'll let you know on board approval of those lump sum payments. As I mentioned, it's pretty significant with 96 school districts, so we will be tracking this over the next couple months. For the districts, there's 45 districts that had less than 1,000. We will make that payment without application for you. And again, notification of all those information will be coming out here shortly. In addition, another form that is due by August 20th is a statement of change in school district boundaries due to annexation by a city or village. If that pertains to your school district, please request the forms and we will get those sent to you. And again, those are due August 20th as well, so that we can have all that documented through our Department of School Finance. The updated TIOSA document is on the Sophos webpage. Please take time to go through that. Primarily, we're in the process of adjusting and refining a little bit to ensure that this is user-friendly for all superintendents and business managers and or bookkeepers. Primarily decodes the components of the equalization aid. It identifies the resources with more detailed information. And as I mentioned, it is available on our website. I'm also putting together a flow chart that better gives you a one-page pictorial of how we do the TIOSA calculations. And in addition, it will identify page numbers of the document for you to go in and review and read to ensure that you have a better understanding of how we do the calculations. Primarily the TIOSA data system. It starts with the consolidated data collection, and as put out by our data team experts that you're currently in the audit window. That ends on June 30th. I know that's a Sunday. For most of you, that ties into getting everything submitted by Friday, the 28th. What's important for the TIOSA is that instructional program hours and then the pupil transportation report. So it's important that you're accurate on those data that you're submitting. In addition, we did tie in some opportunities for the data system as we transition from NSSRS to Advisor. And I think for school districts, you're going to find that Advisor is going to be a better use of tying in all of our data and, more importantly, being more accurate. As you know, NSSRS was tied into quarterly. Advisor, we can pretty much do downloads daily. And that comes off of your school information systems that you have within your districts. And then speaking of Advisor, basically the state operated system that ties into your school information systems. Most of you have made that transition to Advisor. From that, we tie in what's important for TIOSA is your fall membership. That is on October 1st. And then from that, the calculation of the average daily membership. In addition, our focus is through Advisor is tying in the data pieces that tie in for state aid, and then of course, special education as well.
Just gonna note real quick that we are also in the, and if I'm jumping across your slides, stop me, but we're in the audit window right now for average daily membership. So that also closes on June 30th. Kevin sent out emails to, were you going to touch on that?
No, go ahead.
But Kevin sent out emails to several districts that were above. We did some quick analyticals on the average daily membership comparing to prior year. So some of you may have gotten emails saying, hey, you're outside of that range. That doesn't mean that what you have submitted in there is wrong. It's just that there was a significant change there. So we want to notify you and make sure you're checking it. Even if you didn't get an email from Kevin, I highly, highly recommend that you go into the state aid reports that we have available or the membership reports that are available in Advisor. They look very, very similar to what was in NSSRS. Check your average daily membership. We had a major issue with that last year. We had 12 school districts that had significant differences or issues on their average daily membership. And even though they were non-equalized districts, it still came back to hurt them in other federal funding later on in the year. So obviously, if you're an equalized district, that's a real big deal to you right away, because that's what we'll use to do the recalculation that Kevin's going to talk about here in a second. But just just make sure if you are a superintendent or business manager and you're responsible for the finances in your district, that is a number you got to be checking and making sure it's correct.
To add to that, if you did receive an email from me, there wasn't a significant change on your average daily membership. However, I do have a spreadsheet for all public school districts in Nebraska, and I can provide that number to you just for verification. If you want to email me or give me a call a little bit later, I have no problem touching base to make sure we're all on the same page as far as the average daily membership. All right, as Bryce had mentioned, we're going to be beginning the recalculation coming up here in a couple months. The certification, again, that was released on May 29th. We had the fall membership values from October 1 of 18 tied into that, your assessed valuations, and then your 17-18 annual financial report. On the recalculation, we will take those average daily membership numbers that Bryce and I just mentioned as far as ensuring that the audit by June 30th is correct. We take that number, we take the certified valuation, and then for any of you that have an amended 17-18 annual financial report, we will include that data as well. And to note that amended AFR is due July 31st. So those are three important values we utilize when we do the recalculation of the state aid. Just an overall view of the process. We do it twice a year, where we just recently did the certification. We were delayed from March 1st to May 29th, due to the legislative session, getting some bills taken care of and finally getting signed off by the governor. Our next recalculation we'll do is in the fall, as I mentioned, those three components that we utilize in the recalculation. Also, we tie in the local effort rate and then the balancing factor as well as we do the recalculation. All right, as I mentioned earlier, the second slide I had up was the prior year correction. And based on the certification and the recalculations, the difference of that will produce the 2019-2020 prior year calculation, in addition to the 2021 TIOSA aid. So as we do that certification for next year, or recalculation for next year, we will determine prior corrections, if any, for this past year. As I mentioned, we had 141 districts that were affected by prior year corrections this year. Last year, we had 13 districts. So pretty significant jump as we take a look at that. Prior year correction is important because it ties into that lump sum payment if it's over $1,000 for you. And that time frame, again, is on that second slide as far as getting all that submitted and board approved so we can get it back to you by the middle of September. If you have any questions on this, we're like I said, we're updating the TIOSA document with the prior year correction as well. Limited English proficiency and poverty expenditure requirements. Again, the 18-19 expenditures, we do have this listed on the Sophos webpage as far as 117.65% levels of expenditures to tie in codings, reports available, and then assisting with the 18-19 AFR as you get that completed this fall. In addition, for 2021 expenditures, you will report that this fall, the time window between September 1 and October 15th. It's no longer through the grants management system. It'll be tied into the CDC collection. And keep in mind, that's estimated expenditures for your LEP and property requirements. Fall membership reporting. This is recently changed a couple years ago, where it's no longer the last Friday of September. It's now October 1. And the state statute, as far as selected fall school district membership reported as of October 1. And then also statute is qualified early childhood education fall membership reported as of October 1. So for us old school people, that was always the last Friday of September. Now it's your membership as of October 1. Enrollment option, Rule 19, there's no changes to this. The updated manual is on the SOFO's webpage. Bill, I usually defer all the enrollment option questions to him, but our office can address any questions that may be tied into enrollment option.
Just an FYI too, there was a significant rewrite of the FAQ document for that. Just, I guess, trying to get a more clear document or an easier document to read in January, February timeframe. So if you have that printed out or something like that, you reference it from time to time, you might want to print out a new version because it has been updated.
And to add to that, a majority of our calls are coming in from parents. And we would, for the most part, we will tell them what the policies are, what the state statute says, and then we will refer them back to that resident superintendent or option superintendent. So having the updated information is important. And as I mentioned, we strongly encourage the parents to contact superintendents or administrators or your delegates for enrollment option. All right, this is my contact information. Like I said, if you have any questions concerning state aid and future ADM issues or anything like that, please contact me via email or by phone. Any questions? All right.
Okay. I said I have a joke, but he kind of put me on the spot because I think if I come up with this joke, I probably wouldn't be working here too many more days because my jokes can't go over the air like this. So good thing I'm passing on that. Anyway, so I'm going to talk about the district budget and LC2. I'll probably cover some of the things that Dakota talked about, so you might be a repeat, but it's important information, like he said, to keep on top of some of this stuff. You guys are starting to dive in with the budgeting, and there's a lot of things to remember. You do it once a year, and so we have to remind you of some of these things.
The right button.
Oh, it did, sorry. Okay. So we've got information posted right now. The budget text, we posted that yesterday, along with the user's manual. I think Bryce is going to talk about more of that later. We've had the timelines up. The templates for the expenditure exclusions, they've been posted for a while because we've given some of those in asking for a state board approval. The filing deadlines is out there as well. We've got a link to the budget document. But as Dakota mentioned, you want to make sure and download it again, but maybe need to wait a little bit longer if they'll put a new version
No,
up.
it's already out there. It got uploaded late afternoon yesterday.
Okay. With the new chain.
Mhm.
Okay, good. So it's good to go. So I would upload it again just to make sure that you've got the most recent one. The LC2 is not available yet. Our programmers have gotten bombarded with a lot of projects right now. One of those being the AFR system too that we're working with. So from what I understand, we should have that out in mid-July. But you can start putting your information in and you know what your budget authority is, so you can go from there, I think. When the AFR or LC2 is opened up, you'll need to go get a new activation code. And every year you have to do that. If you happen to be a superintendent that has more than one district, you're going to need separate activation codes for each one. If you're a new superintendent this year, you're probably wading through lots of information, but one of the things you need to do is get registered in the NDE portal. And that's how you'll get your activation code. If you need help getting that piece done, getting registered, contact the portal, and for like the NDE portal, the help desk, and they can help you with that. And their information at the bottom of the slide. And this is what you're going to hear from me a lot is use the upload budget file button. a lot. Because that makes sure the information that you're uploading into the LC2 is accurate. We've come across a couple times where it wasn't uploaded the last time, and we had a school that had to go back to amend because they were over budget and didn't realize that. Some schools might be having some issues with unused budget authority, and they need more than what they have. So there's one way you can access prior year's unused budget authority if you still have some. A lot of schools have zeroed that out already. It's at the top of the LC2, and it's line A355, and you'll have to manually enter that number that's on the left side of the sheet. So in this example, it shows like $52,000. That amount needs to be keyed into A355. It's not automatically going to go over for you.
And click save.
Oh, and click save. Thanks, Phil. Because it'll go away if you haven't done that. So again, the LC2 is intended to confirm your budget does meet your spending limitation, the allowable reserve percentage. Keep in mind, you make changes to your budget a lot as you start working with those numbers. Before you do that hearing notice, make sure that you've uploaded it again so it does match what you're going to be having at the hearing. That's very important. The LC2 helps you make sure that you don't go over and become out of compliance with that. So it's going to check for your point at the top of the sheet that you didn't exceed, enter a number that was more than what your access is to budget authority from the previous year. Your budget authority is not exceeded, or you haven't gone over your allowed reserves as well, because you can't submit your LC2 otherwise. After you click, you've got all your budgeting done, you've uploaded your information, it matches up. You'll need to upload your LC2 documentation along with, not the LC2, but the budget documentation. Has to be submitted this way. This won't appear until you click the budget district approval button way at the bottom. And it has to be in the format of a PDF before it's going to be accepted. Once you do upload your documentation file, we too send an email out to confirm that we've gotten that information. If you find that your district might be needing more budget authority, you could go to a vote of the people to get more budget authority in your general fund. And that provides more budget authority just for 1 year. You'll budget that in and it carries over to future years. If you happen to do this, and it's probably late in the game to be doing it this year, you would make sure that your ballot language has a phrase in it that you're including access to expenditure exclusions. You'd work with your attorney to get the wording correct, but that's important to make sure the expenditure exclusion phrase is in there. About several years ago, probably 10, 15, a district did do that, but forgot to put the expenditure exclusion phrase in there, and they couldn't access those then. Budgeting reminders. Make sure when you enter the state aid amount that you're using the bolded figure at the bottom of the page, or I guess it's a bottom number on the second page. It's bolded, use that number. We've seen where it's come in with the wrong numbers in there.
What document?
It's on the state aid certification documents.
So that's on your website, you can pull up your certification document, not the spreadsheets that show everybody's information. There's a specific certification for your district, and that's what you need to pick to get the right number off of that includes the prior year corrections, what the document Janice is referring to.
If you have issues trying to find that, let us know and we can help you get there. Motor vehicle taxes, make sure you're not having something that's less than previous year because those don't normally go down. The county treasurer balance, it's kind of, you don't know what you have because you're doing this in July and you don't get that county treasurer balance until August or September, I guess, for September. So you have to make estimates using previous years. And that impacts your ending balance. And that's the important part, or important factor when you're figuring out your tax request. So if you have a lower beginning balance, you're going to have to make up that difference in your tax request. So that's a big number when you do your budgeting. If you have questions about that, sure, give us a call and we can help you with that. The worksheets, this is where you're gonna do almost all of your work. You'll enter your information. The first column is your actual column, and that's where your audit information comes in for the 17-18 year. And the middle column is kind of the gate, it's this year, the year's not over. You've got 2 more months, you're gonna have to estimate those costs, and that goes in the middle column. And then your planning is in the third column. You'll just key that information into the worksheets. Those formulas are gonna pull that information into the cover page and the summary pages. It's important to note that you don't want to key anything into the summary pages because you might break some of those formulas, and that would make your document not really reliable. If you have an issue with that, give us a call before you rekey into another document, and we can maybe help with fix those formulas. And if we can't, we'll send it on to the auditor's office, and they will be able to do that. So before you panic completely, give us a call, and we can work through this. Another item that the auditors do look at is when they do their review, they're comparing what you ended up in on the actual page from the 18-19 budget document. So that's 16-17, that's page 4, to the same page on the 19-20 budget document. So what you ended with in 16-17 should be what you start with for the 19-20 year. That's an important piece to get taken care of before you even submit, so you don't have to worry about the auditors getting in contact with you and whenever you get an audit email, sorry, Dakota, I'm sure our districts have kind of a heart attack. So this will limit that problem.
Say
Go ahead.
something. There are situations where maybe your last year budget document included incorrect ending balances. So like on the left-hand side, your 16-17 ending balance was actually incorrect. So on your 17, on this year's budget, and then when you're pulling in the balances, you're like, well, do I make it match so the auditors don't question it, or do I make it actually what it was? If it changes, and so like your 19-20 budget on that very first page, if the balance doesn't agree to last year's budget, the first thing our office is going to do is go to that fiscal year 17 audit report that you have to also file with our office. And as long as we can see that the balances on your budget that you just filed agree to the budget, the audit report, we aren't going to contact you, because that just indicates you are reporting correct, accurate balances. And it just indicates last year's budget was slightly off. And at this point, we're not going to make you revise that budget that was filed in the prior year. So going forward, we want accurate balances. So don't feel like you have to make them agree just because that's what was reported on last year's budget. You can always double check with your audit report for that fiscal year and see if they agree. And at that, then we're not going to probably contact you. If they don't agree to the audit report, then we will contact you and ask you why it doesn't.
But they could put a note
Yeah,
on
you
their
can
budget.
also add a page saying why you changed the beginning balances. Usually it would just be like, hey, our balances were incorrect last year, so we are making them agree to the audit report. So.
Okay, good, thank you. Allowable reserves, I talked about that just briefly. These are the 3 components of the allowable reserves. It's your total budget, the depreciation fund, and the cash reserves, and the employee benefit fund, and the general fund. So those are the 3 pieces to that. And this is how it works. We certify an allowable reserve percentage for your school based on ADM. And so a school district that probably has about 600 students would have a 35% allowable reserve percentage. So to see what the total allowable reserves would be for your district, we take that 35% times the total general fund budget. And that would come up with, in this example, a 10 million budget gives you 3.5 that can be in your allowable reserves. One more point I want to talk about with the allowable reserves. This is actually extra tax dollars. So you're not spending that. It's extra tax dollars to help you get through the low points in the year when the tax draws are lower. So like in March or April, it's kind of low pick. You don't get much from the county because that'll be coming in your May draw, because that's when taxes are due, April and May. So it helps you get through those times without having to go to the bank to get a loan just to make payroll. But you have to make a determination on what's best for your district to see what you can have as allowable reserve in the general fund. There's 2 hearings that every district's going to do. It's going to be adopting a budget and then setting the tax request. If you do find out when you're watching your budgets and you see that you might go over spending on one of your budgets that you have in your funds, then you'll have to go in and amend it. And as Dakota talked about, you got to have that done before the end of the fiscal year. The publication notice is the same. It's 4 days before the hearing. You just don't count the hearing, the date of the hearing. So if you have a hearing on Monday, it has to be in the paper by Thursday. And the steps would be you open the hearing, you provide the hearing information to your patrons or whoever shows up. And then you close the hearing, but you take the vote at the board meeting after the hearing closes. There's been some times we've had questions if they have the hearing set and there's only going to be, maybe half their board present. You can still hold the hearing, you just can't take the vote. So you can reschedule a vote to be during a later date when you have all your board present for that. The property tax resolution, Dakota talked about it a little bit. It looks different than in the past. It specifies the tax dollars are requested for each taxing fund. You need to submit it to the county by October 13th. I believe that's a Sunday. So you need to get it there by Friday, the 11th. And you're going to submit that with the budget to the county and the Department of Education and the auditors as well. We do have a sample as well in our budget text if you want to see that as well. And these are just samples of what we think needs to be included on that. The roll count is important, but this means every district has to supply this to the counties. So amending your budget, jumping back to that, you want to make sure right now you're checking year-to-date spending for all your funds because you can't go over budget on anything you budgeted. So lunch and activity funds are frequently amended this time of the year. You're looking at your dollars. If you have a building project in your special building fund, you might want to watch that and see where you're at. And then if you've gone in and refinanced a bond for lower interest rates, even though you don't touch that money, it's still part of your budget. So you're going to have to refinance. All right, you have to amend your bond fund or maybe your qualified capital purpose undertaking fund if you have a bond there that you're going to go lower. But you got to get it. The hearing has to take place before August 31st.
Janice, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Question, do we only submit if total tax request goes up?
That resolution.
The resolution.
Is that
Brian, is that what you're asking about, is the resolution?
because this
Yes.
the LB does indicate it's only required for when the tax amount is increasing, the requested tax amount is increasing. Our office has only put out one example, and we just recommend you do it each year. Because you might have one year where you're lowering your tax request, but we're concerned that it might that resolution would get dropped off, and then the next year when you actually do increase your tax request, you actually forget to do it. So we don't think it'd be a hassle to do it each year.
And is
I
that
think-
a separate third hearing?
No, it's not a separate hearing, but you have to do the resolution no matter what your tax request is. There's just the additional components that are required if you're increasing your tax resolution. So the tax resolution has to be done regardless. It's just a matter of the additional stuff that they added in LB 103 have to be added if you're increasing your tax resolution, which is more the standard than decreasing it. And my position, what I'm recommending as well as the auditor's office is, there's nothing in that additional information that's not already public information or information that you don't already put out there someplace already. So I would highly recommend, along with the auditor's office, it sounds like, to include all that information every year, but you're not required to. And I think we've outlined in our information what's required when it's increased and what's required when it's not an increase. So on the budget text, it does differentiate between those two scenarios.
Yeah, our office just didn't want to put two out there, but so if you actually, as a school district, you have two out there, you said?
We have
Or
We
just-
we really
you
have
just-
one out there, but we identified in the budget text what pieces are necessary if you're increasing, what's not.
So if the school district does decide to go to, like, so if you're decreasing it and you want to use what's only required for that situation, then you certainly can. Or you can just simply just do what's required for that increase and just do it each year. That way you're covered regardless of what if you're decreasing or increasing. So that's why our office has only put out one example. So, but it's ultimately up to the school district and I guess the legal counsel if they want to go their own way.
Is that clear as mud for everyone?
Any other things? No questions? Yet?
All right. Based on LB 103, that hearing has to be before and on different night than the tax request and levy hearings. Is that correct?
There's only one hearing.
No, there's two hearings, but
We
they
got
can
budget
be.
hearing. Yeah, and then you've got the tax request. It's just,
That doesn't have to be on.
The first, so that, I think some of the confusion comes, the first version of LB 103 did require that to be at a different time. And the timing of all that was actually not even possible. And so that got amended and changed before the final version of LB 103. So I guess what I'm saying is the final version of LB 103 does not require any more hearings. There's no change to that. It's just additional information being disclosed, both on the budget and on the property tax resolution.
So same hearings, just more information being provided.
yes.
Okay.
Correct.
Anything
Okay.
else, guys, before we move on?
All right.
Nothing, go ahead.
Okay. So amending the budget, you'll publish the hearing notice as you did the other one, 4 days before the hearing. You're not counting the date of the hearing. So again, for a Monday hearing, you gotta have it in the paper on Thursday. When you submit the documentation of this hearing to amend, you're gonna have to include a proof publication, the board minutes, and then page 2 of the budget document. You will send that to the APA, Department of Education, and county clerks. You can upload those to both APA and FDE. If you happen to amend your general fund or depreciation fund or the cash reserve and the employee benefit fund, this will impact your allowed reserves. So you're gonna have to make sure, look at your LC2 and maybe have to make an amendment there. There's a button at the bottom, amend budget. So you'll click that and then you can enter the numbers of your new budget. Okay, so here's at the end, I've got a few checklists I'd like you to remember to do is expenditure exclusions. When you start working, have you sent them in? There's not a state board meeting in July, so whatever's sent in now is going to August for approval. And every district is eligible for the increased retirement contribution. So that's something, if you're short of budget authority, you want to make sure and do that. And there's templates out there, so take use of those things. As you work on your budget, make sure you're using LC2 to keep you without going under or over budget. So upload as you change your budget to make sure you're still within those boundaries. And that you're gonna be looking for spending limits as well as the levy limits as you're making those changes. If you put in your valuation on the cover page, it'll calculate out on Schedule B, so keep a track of that. Make sure before you publish your hearing notice, upload it one more time into the LC2 to make sure that they're gonna match. And double check that before your hearing too as well. You get those 4 days notice when you publish the hearing notice. You're not counting the day of the hearing.
All right, Janice, we have another question real quick. For an amendment and page 2 of the budget document, do you post all fund balances or just the fund to be amended?
Your publication notice has all the different funds. You publish, as Dakota talked about that, you're gonna publish what was originally published when you had your hearing to adopt the budget, then you're gonna put the entire matrix again for what the amended ones are. And you'll include all the funds in
I just
that.
don't know what the statute requires. But it's probably just easier to do it all of it, so you can show what was originally amended and then show or which originally was approved as the budget, then once amended, and you can just show which one. It would be clearly identified which ones are changing when you list all of them out. That way it's clear and transparent.
Okay, thank you.
But yeah.
Okay, this happens once in a while. You'll take your hearing notice or send it to the paper expecting to see it on Thursday and it doesn't get published. That usually happens when you have a smaller paper. You can't hold that hearing. So, because it's not published, you can't post them anyplace. What we always recommend that you don't wait late in the month of September to make sure that if this does happen, have it early enough so you can come back and publish it within that September 20 due date. Hold off of approving your LC2 until after your board approved your budget. We can unlock it for you, but that's just a step. I would just hold off on that. So then you're going to submit your budget documentation to the Department of Ed through the portal, APA, through their website, and you can probably email that same packet to your county clerks and have that sent to them before September 20th. If you have a hearing for your taxes, property taxes a little bit later, you got that deadline of October 13th, but the 13th is a Sunday, so I would do it on Friday to make sure they have it on time. And the big date here is when you get that notification from the county, what they've set your taxes at and the levy, make sure the request and the levy is correct, because after November 5th, you can't do anything about it and you have to make it work. So that's really important. That happened one time to a district, and it was for their bond fund, I believe, and it caused some issues for them. They had to, I think, get a loan at the bank. So end of year budget reminders. If you look at it, getting closer to August, middle of August, and you're seeing that, you've got leftover, like plenty of spending authority remains in the general fund. You got two options. You can transfer some of that money to the different funds I've got listed there. Remember, when you transfer into the depreciation fund, it's actually an expense. So you're going to have to expense it out of whatever category is appropriate. So if you're putting money up for a bus, you're going to have to put it in the 2,700 someplace and expense it out. The other, and that'd be the same with the employee benefit fund. You're going to have to expense it out of whatever function code you think the money needs to be used in when you have it in the bond, in the employee benefit fund. But the school nutrition fund, activity fund, those would be called transfers. Keep in mind, you may not want to do that if you were experience issues with, short, cash flow is kind of bad coming in March and April, February maybe. So you may want to help cover that, and that would be by not moving that money, that budgeted authority, out of the general fund into these other four funds, because that's going to increase your beginning balance for the next year. Maybe that's going to help you through. You won't have to go back to a loan from a building fund or something, or going to the bank. So every school is different. You have all kinds of different needs. So what works for one district may not work as well with another district. You have to make a decision on your own with that. And then lastly, confirm that the county has set your levy correctly. That's big. You don't want to get caught in the middle of that one. If you have any questions, let us know. And if you think of things later, sure, give us a call and we can help you with that. So now it's Bill's turn.
Thank you. All right, expenditure and levy exclusions. These are used in the general fund, and they allow a school to budget over their expenditure limit, and most of them will require approval from the State Board of Education. The two areas that are not needing the State Board's approval is your special education expenditures, and then the special grant fund list that you will find on the LC2. The ones that, again, are on the special grant fund list, there are insurance settlements, interfund loans, reimbursements for wards of the court, and then repayment of county governments for previous overpayments. And those are all found at the bottom of the LC2 on the special grant fund list. There's little asterisks there that indicate that you will have to send something in to me so I can get it submitted to the board for their approval. The rest on that list is short-term borrowings, special supplemental grants from the city or county government, and then special supplemental grants that you may receive from various corporations, foundations, or other private entities. And again, with those, you'll just have to write me a short description of on district letterhead, if it's short-term borrowings, just explaining what the situation is. You need to borrow $1 million. It'll be paid back in X time. And again, I will submit it to the board for their approval. The expenditure exclusions right now are the new elementary attendance sites, the 18-19 early childhood education grants, reorganization support grants, and then retirement incentive and staff development. For the new elementary attendance sites and exclusion for all costs related to the first year of operating the site, you would include salaries for all staff, certificated and non-certificated, any utilities, any maintenance, and then more than likely it would qualify for the 1920 state aid under the elementary site allowance. The 18-19 early childhood education grants can be requested for the amount equal to the 18-19 grant and the statute increase of the basal allowable growth rate. If 1920 is the first year, childhood membership is included in the district's formula students. The reorganization support grants and retirement incentive and staff development. This is only for newly merged or reorganized districts. And the support grant must be approved by the state reorg committee. Let's see, here we have, so if we received an 18-19 early childhood grant, we can submit an exclusion request. That is correct. Janice has created a template under our website that I will show you exactly where it's at. If you are on that template, it tells you the exact amount to enter, and then you would save it and email that document into me for submission. The exclusions that will appear on your, or you will need to enter on your Schedule A of your budget document would be any repairs to infrastructure damaged by a natural disaster, any judgments not covered by the liability insurance, any distance education courses, voluntary termination agreements, retirement contribution increase, or a Native American impact aid. For the repairs to infrastructure, stuff that would qualify, it would have to be declared by the governor or FEMA. Stuff would be like flooding, tornadoes, wildfires. The judgment piece, the district must have a judgment entered against it that obligates the district to pay out, and that does not include orders from the Commission of Industrial Relations. For the distance education part, this provides, it's for districts that provide distance education courses through their ESU coordinating council to other districts. And the exclusion is the amount that is actually received as payment from the other school. All right, voluntary termination agreements. This one is, Jen spent a lot of time on this part, making sure that everything is done properly on the template, which I will also show later on where to find it. This exclusion would be anything resulting from voluntary termination agreements for collective bargaining agreements beginning September 1 of 17, and its incentives for certificated staff, and that it can include insurance coverage for that staff member or any member of their family. When it comes to the voluntary termination agreements for certificated teachers after September 1 of 17, the incentives cannot exceed $35,000 per person. They have to be paid out within 5 years or prior to becoming eligible for Medicare, whichever of those two items comes first. The template will also ask for a 5-year savings of those salaries and benefits. And this section of the template does not include anything with a collective bargaining agreement. Now, when it comes to the collective bargaining agreement section, again, it's for certificated employees only. And it's for the CBAs that are in place prior to September 1 of 17. Retirements that occurred prior to that, the exclusion would have 100% payout. Anything happening after September 1st, the rate has gone down. In 17-18, it was 75% was all you could get. Last year it's 50%. This year will be 25. And then for 2021, it will not be an option. The most popular exclusion among the districts is the retirement contribution increase. And that simply is the difference between the district's contribution rate of 9.88 and the statutory rate of 7.35. The template out there will do the math for you. You just put in the value and it will calculate everything and tell you the amount of exclusion that you guys get to use. For the districts that get impact aid, this was done, I believe, for 17-18 and on, but it gives the districts with Native American land within its boundaries and received impact aid due to children residing on Native American land attending the school. Again, that exclusion, that amount, you guys will write out on the district letterhead. It's usually you would calculate a 3 to 5 year average of what you've received. And then that would be the amount you would ask for by just putting it in the letter and sending it in to me. So now we're on to our website, which is listed up there at the top. I'm sure several of you have been there many times. This is the current look. The arrow is pointing to the June 7th. Oh, actually, it looks like it might have been altered a little bit. It should be pointing at the templates section, which has that retirement increase exclusion, the voluntary term exclusion, and then that early childhood education grant exclusion. A lot of them, all three of them actually, is once you fill stuff in, it will automatically calculate and let you know what to put on your budget. For those templates, we ask that you please round your dollar amounts to the nearest dollar, no cents or change. And then include exclusions in the budget prior to the state board approval. While I've never seen it before, I'm sure there is a chance that they won't get approved, but again, I haven't seen it. So go ahead and put that amount into your budget. If you were to submit it to me today, go ahead and put it in your budget today and just confirm that the amount that you did put into the budget is approved once the approval is posted from the August board meeting. And that's essentially that last bullet there. Here's the information for sending me those exclusions. Email is the best because it comes directly to me. The fax is also fine, but it's a general department fax, so it would just be faster to send it straight to me. Here is the deadlines for submission to get it to those board meetings. Like Janice said, there is not a board meeting in July. So anything that is submitted now through July 20th will go to the August meeting. And then, as you can see, each meeting after that. So technically, you would want to have everything in probably by August 17th, because that would be the last state board meeting prior to your submission of the budget document. But if you do, again, have to submit it late, you can get it in by the 14th and you'll still be able to use that amount in your budget. And then once it is approved by the state board, each month, with usually by the Friday following the state board meeting, we will publish the approval of your exclusions. So right now, the only one that has been done would be for the June 7th. You would simply click on that, and if you want it for your own documentation, you can print it out and put it with your exclusion or your budget document, or you can just visually confirm that your exclusion was approved by the board. For the levy limitation, everybody's levy is set at $1.05, but through the levy exclusions for the 3 taxing funds listed there, it gives you the ability to go over that $1.05. And it would also show in your budget schedule B. It will calculate it there and let you know. The levy exclusions that are there that give you that ability to go over the $1.05 are voluntary termination agreements with certificated employees, judgments. You've heard those 2 previously in the expenditure exclusions. They're on both sides of the exclusion. And then bonded indebtedness for bond principal and interest. And that's in the 2 funds for the bond and the QC Puff fund. And here's a list of the 5 levy exclusions and then the 12 expenditure exclusions. Again, there's the 2 that are on both sides and then each one thereafter. And that is it for exclusions. Any questions before I pass it on to Bryce? Answer.
All right, well, for those that follow me on Twitter, you might have saw yesterday that we posted a whole bunch of information out on our website that you're going to want to review. So starting right up at the top there with the user's manual, there are a lot of requests to have an updated user's manual similar to what we've had in the past years, but with all this new account codes. We got that posted on our website yesterday. It has a slightly different name now. It's the accounting structure and user's manual. Probably eventually the user's manual will drop off there. I think it maybe makes a little more sense to have that first part of the name there, but didn't want to confuse people any more than we already have this last year. So we left user's manual on it for now. You'll notice, obviously, it's a lot bigger than the last versions. I think it's a little more complete too. We've worked hard to get definitions on some of the accounts that even in the last user's manual didn't have that. Essentially now this is what used to be the ESSA code description document on our ESSA webpage. This is the new version of that. It's the updated version. It has the final list of account codes that you can use for 1819. So right along with that user's manual coming out, the final master code list for 1819 was also made available yesterday. So the last update that you guys had seen on our website was from September. This is the final version. There are a decent amount of changes on it. All I identified on the changes tab of that master code list. In the user's manual in the past, we've put new account codes at the top section or the front of the user's manual. This year, instead of doing that, since obviously we have just a lot of new codes since the 1718 version, we use the first part of that user's manual to identify the changes from September till now to this final version, so that you can hopefully easily find and know which accounts changed, or which codes are available or which ones are no longer available that were in the version that most people use for the most majority of the year. I think a lot of the changes are accounts that people a lot of the accounts that we took out are accounts that people shouldn't have been using anyways. Basically, we just firmed up our account code list and got rid of accounts that we don't believe should have been used and were included in that first version. We added a few account codes that were requested throughout the year that made sense to have, just because there were purposes that people need them for that made sense to us, and so those are added. At this point, if you don't find an account code on that list that you need, we're going to have to figure out something else. So it is a final version. It will not change. So what you need to be doing is making sure now that when you do your test uploads on our website, which I'm going to talk about in just a second, that all those account codes match that master code list. So you're going to want to check that closely and check for those changes. So the next step then is uploading that. If you haven't uploaded a file already, we highly recommend you do that. Even if you've done it, I think it's probably a good exercise to do again to make sure now that we've got a final account code list out there that you are matching up to that account code list. One of the things too, I think may be helpful is to keep in mind that Excel document. You can sort that up at the top by the different funds or the different account codes. You can search them that way. That makes it a lot easier, a lot more user friendly. Obviously, when there's so many account codes, scrolling through that list is not an efficient way, not an efficient use of it, or not efficient use of your time. So make sure you're using that sort function or search function. So, and if you have questions on how to do that, you can call Bill, Janice, or myself, and we can definitely help you through that. So, but what you're looking for when you do an upload, essentially you're wanting to make sure that all of your account codes are valid account codes, or at least account codes that are being rolled over to valid account codes. We understand a lot of you guys have different stuff going on at the school, at your district level, that don't match the master account code list, and that's fine. They just have to be mapped to one of our account codes when they come across and in the correct format. So when you do that upload, if you see the errors section at the top, I know some of you guys have seen a couple of these slides already. I'm going to run through it again though, just to make sure people understand. And this is going to be very similar to what you'll see in the fall if you have problems. This test upload site, we are going to keep it up all the way through September 30th. That way, when your auditors come in and you're working on getting a final, you want to run it through that test upload to see if it's going to work. You can do that all the way through September 30th. On October 1st, when we open the live version that's going to need to be submitted, we will close down the test site at the day before. So that way you'll make sure you're using the correct one. But if you see the errors at the top, you'll also probably see at the bottom a similar error message down below that shows you what account codes are not working with our system. Something's incorrect in those account codes. So you need to compare that list to the master account code list and figure out what's not matching up, so you can type those in the search function and see if it's there or it's not there.
And it's not just account codes. It can also be your district's ID number, any sort of data that is not correct.
So for example, like Bill's saying there, the 1, 2, 3 on that top one, I don't know if that's an object code or if that's
It's supposed to be an agency ID.
So
a fake one.
Yeah. So if you have an agency ID that doesn't match what we have in the system here at the department, as far as the student system, then it's not going to come across and be able to upload. So also, if you're using characters like an A on that bottom example, those won't upload into our system because they're not valid account codes.
When you get those lists, when you do the upload and you find those long lists, you can let us know if you have problems. You might want it to be quicker for you to look through the user's manual. Maybe you can track down why those codes don't work before you send something in.
Or filter the master list.
Or filter,
Because that'll tell you.
or filter the master list, and then
Yep.
that'll help you, like Bryce said.
It also you might look at that changes tab because it may be a valid account code initially, and then it's been changed since. So just some places that we would look first if we were uploading them. Once you get those errors or those account codes corrected that are invalid, you're going to see a screen like this without the nasty error message at the top. At the bottom of the page there, you'll see there's 6 different steps in that upload process. For some of the bigger schools, that might take a few minutes. So you can see at the bottom, it'll show you how far along you are through those 6 steps. That way you know it's still processing and moving forward and you don't quit on it. Once it's all done, that View Data tab over there under the link in the middle of the page by the green arrow will pop up. Once you're done, you'll want to click that view data button. That's going to bring you to this page where you have to enter in your building contents values and beginning ending balances. That's similar to the old AFR process when you uploaded that. We'll need that information before you can start moving into the reports, because the reports uses a bunch of that information. So what that looks like, you're going to enter in for the building and contents, just like you have the ability to do with your expenses. You can code them either to the district level or to the school building level. We would anticipate that really only the actual buildings. So if you have like an elementary building, that would be coded to the building level. The things like football facilities, the district admin office, those would all be coded to the district level and then allocated. We will allocate them out to the different buildings based on average daily membership, same as we do with expenses. And this is all goes towards the per pupil cost calculation that we're required to do, and the whole reason behind the ESSA changes. So I have a slide here on that in a second. Once you have entered in the building and contents and the beginning and ending balances for those different funds, you'll be able to review reports. I do want to back up and just mention on the beginning and ending balances, I've had a question, and a good question around how does that work with our reports. When you upload the information to us, our system is going to round. We're only going to work in dollars. We're not going to work in cents. Your books are all going to be kept on cents, so there may be some rounding difference in there. You'll want to put in your actual beginning balance. Our system does a check then and adds the revenues you have, subtracts the expenditures, and derives an ending balance. Your ending balance may be a little different there because of rounding issues. We will build in a reasonableness variance there into our system. So, if it's set at $100, we can adjust that if we know, some of the larger school districts may be a little above that. The smaller districts are probably going to be less than $10 rounding difference. But as long as you're close there, that won't be an issue. Those also don't roll forward. So in the next year, you don't have to worry about that difference growing. You'll re-enter in the second year your new beginning balance, which will be your actual beginning balance on your books and your ending. So there is some wiggle room in there. Just know that on those beginning and ending balances. The reports then, we have, I believe, 9 different reports that you can view. You can look at these at the different fund levels. You can also look at them at the district versus school building level. We're going to show you everything from general fund receipts, where you can look and see what the total is at the county amount, the local amount, like we've kind of done in the past. You'll be able to click and expand that and see what each one of those different lines are. Keep in mind that that receipts are still coming in at the district level. They do not come in at the building level. It's only expenses that are coming in at the building level. Again, just a reminder on the expenses, we are expecting that you are going to be allocating out to the building level anything that can be, specifically salaries, when at all possible, should be allocated out to a building level. I'm still throwing that warning out there. If we see a AFR come in and everything's coded to the district level, we will return that and ask for that to be as much as possible allocated out to the building level. So please don't try that strategy and think that's going to be the easy way out. There are definitely, but that is not to say, I'm not trying to scare people away from coding correct expenses to the district level. It is absolutely appropriate to be coding some expenses to the district level, things that may make perfect sense, like a superintendent's salary, or if you have a maintenance guy that works equally between 2 buildings, something like that. But that also doesn't mean your superintendent's salary can be coded to different buildings based if you have a superintendent who is spending the majority of his time in a specific building, trying to get a low performing school up to speed, things like that. You have the flexibility and can make that determination at your school and determine then, and ultimately what that affects then is your per pupil cost that we'll talk about in a second. So once those school allocations are done, you're going to have a report that'll show you basically how much is being allocated to each school building of those different expenses. You're going to see how much was U-coded to the school level. So in this example here, we have a high school that, and we're showing you at the top there what the ADM is for each of those buildings. Based on ADM, the high school is 50% of this example. If there's 1,000 kids in this district, 500 go to the high school. So anything coded to the district level is going to have 50% of that allocated out to the school. You'll see on that first line there of the report under Sampletown High School, the district coded 40,000 to the school. So that shows the total in that account of 40,000 for that school building. On the next line there, the district coded 100,000 of that 2610 account to the district level. 50,000 of that based on the ADM was coded out to that school building. So you see the allocated line, that's what we're doing based on your ADM and you coding to that expense to the district. The school submission line is what you coded directly to that school. So, and it can be a combination. That last line shows where 20,000 was coded to the district submission. So 10,000 was allocated to the school by us. The district coded 25,000 directly to that school building. So you have a total of 35,000 between the two going to that school building. That's just how that report's going to show you. So when you're reviewing that, you think, oh, that's not right, or that's not what I want. You're going to have to make those changes. And to make those changes, you're going to have to go clear back and fix it in your software, re-upload that file and go through the process again. There is no way to change it on those reports or in our system after it's uploaded.
Oh, while you're flipping pages here, hold on. Question on the recent federal changes that we've been discussing this week and last week. What is going on with 6404, 06, 6410? Does that code change to 6408?
All those codes are still going to be in there next year.
Yes. And
This year, 1819.
1819.
And 1920. We're not taking anything away. That's what I got from Greg yesterday.
Okay, we're not taking anything away, but we're adding 6408
Yes.
For 1920.
for 1920.
Yeah.
So if you really have any true in-depth questions, I would contact Greg Prohaska here.
Exactly.
And he will have the most up-to-date information on that. And then he essentially relays all of that to us. And then we put it in the user's manual. We will update you guys that way also. But Greg would be your first go-to person because it all essentially comes from him. So
Per pupil cost is the next thing I want to go over, and that'll be a report you have available. Keep in mind, this is the whole reason the ESSA coding change occurred, and that is to get at a per pupil cost by school level. So we are going to be publishing this information. What you see on these reports for your district is going to be published on the NEP come the end of December. So the public is going to be able to see what your per pupil cost is at each building that you have kids in your district. I would highly recommend that you check this report closely, because if there are significant variances, that may be accurate, but you want to be prepared and ready to explain those differences. And that might be appropriate. Maybe you have a low performing school that you are putting a lot of resources in to bring it up, or maybe it's because your tenured teachers are there. You just need to know and understand that that's the case. This report will show you that. We're going to show you what you're showing for average daily membership there. Again, what I know every one of you is going to check as soon as this webinar is done to make sure it's correct, because that'll also affect your per pupil cost. As a few districts found out this last year, when they had 40,000 of per pupil cost at their district. So you don't want to have to explain that. Total adjusted current expenses is going to come off the AFR, and it shows you what account line that is. And then this is at the high school level, the annual depreciation amount that you entered in there. 3% of that comes into the per pupil calculation. You get a total annual cost. Between those two, we add those together, divide by your ADM to come up with a per pupil cost. It shows you the formula there for that. Again, that is the number. That is the minimum that is required by ESSA to be published this year. We will make sure that is done. There'll be a lot of other information from the AFR. Eventually, I think we have a lot of plans of how to make that data more available and better, usable for both districts and the public. But to get through this first year, that's what we're aiming for, is to make sure we get to that.
On that far right column, it has prior year. We don't have that information now because of the coding changes, and we never collected this by level before. So that column will
By school.
populate
We didn't collect it by school.
by school last year. So the prior year column will populate for the 1920 year.
Yeah, you'll see nothing in it for this first year. After that, that will be populated.
All right, real quick before you move on. Question is, what is the best way to determine value of the building / contents? And then is it just easiest to use insurance values?
That's what I think most people do, is use the insurance value that they get from their adjusters or their insurance guy. So that's what I think is used the most common. All right, so just I'm worried about this, and you're going to hear me say it every time until we get through this reporting period. Probably if you come to our presentations, because we're concerned this is going to trip people up a little bit. The SPED costs for contracted services are in the 2100s now, not the 1200s. So the combination of 1200s and 2100s that are SPED codes are going to be added together to come up with your maintenance of effort total. These specific codes that are listed here are the ones that will be included in the SPED total cost. There are other 2100s, and they're on the next slide, that are not included in that SPED cost. So you need to make sure you're coding it correctly if it's a SPED student that you're contracting services for, whether that be OT, PT, whatever one of those services there. What you'll notice is, for example, on like the psychological services, we're using 2141 through 2143. That's breaking it by the different age ranges, 0 to 2, 3 to 5, and then school age. The 2140 is going to be on the next slide that you'll see for psychological services. That is if you have a non-SPED student using those services. We understand that sometimes that is the case. So you'll make sure you use the correct account code, whether it's a SPED or non-SPED student. So when you are totaling those up, you need to make sure that, and looking at your maintenance of effort, that you're using both the 1200s and the correct 2100s that are SPED's costs. The two other things I want to mention on that is, one, the biggest reason we get amendments on your annual financial reports or AFRs is because people didn't meet maintenance of effort or didn't code enough to maintenance of effort, and they're trying to go back and make that change. I would highly recommend that you use the SPED team's maintenance of effort tool they have on their website to check that prior to the end of your school year and prior to the end of your audits before you submit that to us, so you can make those corrections or changes on the front end, not on the back end. And so that way it's recognized correctly, and it'll just save you some headaches. So that's number one. Number two is on the state auditor's budget document this year too, they have differentiated on the 2100s between SPED and non-SPED expenditures, so you can enter those accordingly on there. Last year that was somewhat confusing on trying to get all that information out there. So that should make your budgeting process a little easier for you, hopefully, as well. Again, the AFR system, the live system, will open on October 1st. That is due to us November 1st. Make sure that you're comfortable, and one more reason to be doing a test upload is to make sure you're comfortable with those financial reports. You're going to need to make sure that your audit matches up with your annual financial report. If they don't, you're going to be getting a phone call from us, and somewhat rushed phone call from us saying, hey, you got to make this change ASAP and get it uploaded to us, because we are moving forward with the data, and so we can calculate TIOSA. We don't have a very short window there to review that and compare that information. In the past, we've been able to, in our system, to be able to make those changes and then just notify you that a change has been made. With all the allocations that are done in the system now, we can't do that anymore. So it has to be done on your end again in your accounting software and then re-uploaded to us, and the process went through again. So if you get a phone call from us because it's not matching your audit, it's going to be a rushed phone call saying, hey, we need you to do this as soon as possible. So what I would recommend is working with your auditors to make sure that that your AFR matches your audit. And so that's not an issue. And talking to the auditors last week at one of the conferences I present at, it sounds like the majority of them are not planning on uploading your AFR anymore like they've done in the past. That's going to be your call. So if you have questions about that, you're going to want to talk to them and or do a practice in our portal. So if your auditor is not done with the audit, you haven't got the audit and November 1st is quickly approaching, I'd be requesting a preliminary report from your auditors. They probably have a pretty decent idea by late in October what it's looking like. Hopefully that will get you close enough that there's not any changes required. And then again, we're recommending do the upload as soon as possible. Don't wait till the last minute. So if you run in, since this is all the new account codes, a new system, just don't want people to run in and try and do this on Halloween and get more of a scare than they really want. So try to avoid that. We don't want Halloween scares. There's your joke. There's his joke of the day. That's as good as I can do today. So it's been a long week already. We did create, so there is still the original ESSA FAQ we have out on the ESSA webpage. That ESSA webpage will go away after the submission this year. So sometime in December, we'll probably take that webpage down. We have updated and put kind of more of a live ESSA FAQ document out there where you can ask a question directly into that. We'll review it and post it. May make some tweaks to it so it makes a little more sense to everybody else. But that's out there and it's maybe more aimed now towards submission of the ESSA account codes, but can still answer any questions you may have there as well. So with that, that's kind of all the AFR ESSA stuff. We know this has been a long journey for a lot of you. We know that it's still a long journey for us. We're still working hard to get everything updated on our end as far as updating all the calculations and software and programs we need to, and still actually even finalizing a few of those reports. So when you review those reports on that test upload site, if you see an error or something doesn't add up, please let us know. We've done a lot of testing in them. I probably still need to do it, but I guess with that, I think most of you hopefully that'll push you over to the end, and maybe push you over the edge too. But I guess a little encouragement is we know you can do it. You'll make it, and we're hoping we do the same. So if you have questions, again, as you go along, feel free to contact us. I think most of you probably have at some point already this year, but
You finish that, but don't go on to rule. And
it's too late.
I killed your train of thought. Sorry.
So anyways, let us know if you have questions. We'll still be around and available multiple times this summer for questions and answers on that if you just want to come visit with us. So
All right. So one more question before you move on, or at least one right now. What if we have coded all sped costs to 1200 and have not used the 2100 function codes? What do we do about that?
well, you would need to journal. You're going to have to journal entry in those contracted services back into the 2100s out of your 1200s. So hopefully it's just a matter of identifying which costs were contract related and then do a journal entry and get those amounts into the appropriate 2100 account code.
Okay. They're firing them up now. Well, we'll leave that question on this side. Thanks, Brian.
The answer is yes. I know I'm all messed up, Ryan. You got me all excited about that. Rule 1, just a reminder that we added last year a new format or a request to your auditors, a new format for the statement of cash receipts, disbursements, and fund balance. It's in the supplemental schedules. That's really maybe what you're going to be using to help yourself tie out to your AFR. The reason we did that is it makes it easier for us. I would recommend you use that as well. It should align, the format we had to put it in should align right down to the function codes in your AFR and match up. That's the whole reason we had that report or that format requested. most of the auditors did a pretty good job with that as far as getting it in that format for us. Really helped us. I think it'll really help you. So look for that schedule when you're doing that comparison on that report. Eventually, man, we'd really love to build out some kind of a way to upload that so that it does that comparison automated, I guess. So it's easier on you guys and us, and we catch all those mistakes in the front end and not trying to fix them on the back end. So also, your auditors are still required to do some testing on average daily membership. That will look a little different with Advisor this year. So just know they're going to be looking at, since your SIS is automatically uploading all that information, they're not looking at those student summary attendance reports that were uploaded quarterly like they did in the past. They're going to be looking at your system, making sure enrollment dates are accurate, that absences, those kinds of things. They're still going to be checking all that information there. And then for the most part, your audits are still going to be completed at the district level. What your financial statements look like are going to come in at the district level. So that'll look very similar. We are asking your auditors to do some sampling on your allocations, your expense allocations out to the school building level to make sure that that per pupil cost is accurate. So when I talked to the auditors last week about that, I got a lot of hot head nods that they were on board with that. I'm talking to them again here in a little over a week to another group. So I'll make sure that they're doing that. So just make sure and understand that that's occurring. This is just kind of our recommendation every year. We tell you to have in your responses on the letter to management to have your auditors include your response. It just satisfies that requirement in statute. You have to submit that to us if it's all together. It makes it easier on us and easier on you. Save another question.
No question.
Again, just because we're coming up on that time of year, your superintendents, or if you're an ESU administrator, your contract needs to be uploaded on or before August 1st. If we don't have that by October 1st, we have to start withholding. Obviously, nobody wants that. Just make sure you get that uploaded into the portal before that date. Anytime that you're having a hearing to renew a contract, or your board is having a vote to renew that contract, or is going to issue a new contract for a new superintendent, you need to post it on your website. If it's a returning superintendent, 3 days prior. If it's a new superintendent, 2 days after the meeting when it's approved. Census collection, as of June 30th, will be opening here shortly. That is due July 10th. You have the audit window from 11th through the 20th. If you have any questions on that, call Janice or email Janice. The online exempt school is in, I guess, functioning and moving forward with the 1920 request right now. That process, hopefully, I know many of your schools, it's been a little slow the last 2 years as we move to the online system. I'm really hoping that's a lot faster this year. There are reports available where you can see what the status is of the people living in your district that are applying for exempt, if their application has been received, if it's been reviewed, if it's been accepted or processed. So that's there, or returned to them for additional information. So you can review that. They're color coded there. Hopefully that makes it simpler for your school district. And then just opportunities for budget assistance. Just want to remind you that we will be doing new SOUP orientation. Also open to new business managers, bookkeepers, anybody that works with budgets, state aid, anything school finance related. You're welcome to come, even if you're not a new superintendent and you just like my good jokes or want to come visit with us. You're welcome to attend those new SOUP orientations. The morning session, 8:30 to noonish, roughly, for both those locations, will be more classroom style. We'll hit the budget heavy. We'll do a little state aid, 101 type of thing, and just other general school finance information. Then in the afternoon, we typically have a time where we'll just come around and talk with you one-on-one. So, if you just want some budget assistance, stop by in the afternoon. If you're not new and you just want us to look at things and you don't want to have the classroom experience, you're welcome to do that as well. We'll be there. If you have a start on, if you're a new superintendent or you just have a start on your budget, sometimes that makes it a little bit easier for us to help you if you don't know where to start. That's a great place for us to get you started, and then we'll turn you loose and have you do a few things, then come back and see us on at administrator days. Like we've done in the past, we will be upstairs, I believe. I think we have 2 rooms this year. So hopefully a little less confusion, a little less chaotic, maybe at times where it gets a little busy in there, where you should have a little more room as well to spread out and work on your budget. And then we can just kind of walk around and help you as needed. We will be up there on Wednesday and Thursday from 8 till 4, basically, and we'll be over there over the noon hour. We always are. We don't let Janice have lunch. She's not allowed to do that. So
Wanders off.
but we'll be up there at administrator days. Also, Kevin and I will be doing a school finance presentation like we've done in the past. We're doing one Wednesday and one Thursday this year. So I guess, again, another opportunity for budget assistance. And then, like we've always done in the past as well, you're always welcome to set up appointments with Janice, Bill, myself. I'm sure Kevin would be more than willing to sit down with you. He's been through it many times and from your end as well. So any one of the 4 of us would be glad to do that. Or the other thing that works really well is for you to email your budgets in. We can take a look at them then and email you back or give you a phone call on questions or things we think need to be addressed. So those opportunities are always available. So that's, I guess, budget assistance. One thing I want to note here too, before we just finish up, and that is that I was asked to note this, that the ESSA consolidated application for 1920 will be opening sometime in July, probably towards the end of the month, between the middle and the end of the month. So look for that to be available, I guess, about a month from now. If you have questions on that, Diane Steamer and her team will be the ones to contact. And then other than that, just remember, for school financial related information, feel free to follow me on Twitter. We'll try and keep you updated there with things that we feel are pertinent, or especially if you're not, we know we email out to the superintendents. We've also started emailing out to a business managers list that we found here at the farm. We didn't know that we had. So if you're a business manager or a bookkeeper and you want to be emailed the school finance related information that we send out to our contact list, have that updated in Advisor, and we will make sure that you're included with that as well. And then with that, the contact information there for myself, Kevin, Janice, and Bill. And that's what we have today for your webinar. Again, we'll be making this available on our website if you want to hear all of our comments or have questions or want to hear it again. So with that, we thank you for joining us today. Do we have any last questions? We'll stay on for just a second here and see if there's any questions. If there's no questions, then we'll call that a day.
All right, we got one. Kind of a lengthy one, so pay attention. Back to the budget hearing publication. Does the resolution setting the property tax request required by LB 103 need to be published in addition to the notice of special hearing to set final tax request and notice of budget hearing that come from the budget document, or does it just need to be approved by the board?
I'm not sure on that one. Do you have any idea?
It does not need to be published. It just has to be approved and include those. There's nothing new that needs to be published other than the information that is on the auditor's document for the budget hearing. Yeah.
So would that be something they would want to include when they submit the approval of the budget, the board minutes? Would they want to make sure that that piece is noted in the board minutes when they submit it to us?
Well, it'll be on the action item and that on the resolution that they accept that additional information. So that will be included there. So, but it does not have to be published, no.
But in most cases, it will be a part of the board minutes that
Yes.
are published. So it will be on there.
Yes, indirectly published through the board
Correct.
minutes, yes.
Yes.
No, submit it to us.
Any other questions? Everybody left? They all made it.
No, we still got 54 excited people.
Gotta wake them up.
Oh, here's another one. Is there a reason to have dates to submit enrollment option paperwork in the paperwork if those dates are not to be used to decline an option enrollment request.
Well, those dates are all statutory required dates. You can use some of those dates, I guess, depending on which dates you're talking about, to deny an option enrollment if it's after a March 15th deadline, but that would all come down to your district's option enrollment option policy, and probably a conversation with your attorney on whether that is an acceptable reason or not. But for some purposes, those are appropriate to use and statutorily required to set the requirements on if that option enrollment is meeting all the requirements or not, based on March 15th and if it has resident district approval or not, and some of those other dates.
But if the student has attended the other district for 2 years, can you deny it?
If a student has attended a district as a resident or an option student for the 2 consecutive prior years, the resident district doesn't even have a say. The option district is required to accept that student, and the resident district just needs to be notified that it's occurring. So no. Good questions. Keep them coming if you got any more.
Do you know when the AFR test site will be up and running again?
It better be running right now. Or,
Well, if they bookmarked the previous site,
so
that's not valid. You'll need to go to our ESSA webpage through the SFOS and get the updated test site. There is
which
a new
was updated
website.
to the end of May.
Could have been, yeah.
That's when we
But, yeah.
reopened it. So I think that since the end of May, it's been up and running. So if you're using the site from before that, the website changed. So that may be why it's not working correct.
If not, call Janice or myself and we'll figure out what's going on. Last call.
Forward.
Right. Oh, there we go. Would it benefit our cost per student to keep building and content value as low as reasonable?
Well, I guess that depends on so the lower you have your value of building and contents is going to have a lower per pupil cost. I guess the question is do you want that or not, I guess, but those values, I guess, should be as accurate as possible. And just if you're using your insurance amounts, then you have something you're tying them out to if they're questioned. If the public questioned why that amount, we're going to show them what the dollar amount was entered. So if you have an insurance document backing it up, I don't know that that's something you can really change a lot or should be changing a lot. It probably is what it is. Unless you're debating about building a new building because it's going to inflate your per pupil cost. But again, that's just something I think where you want to be able to explain it. Yeah, our per pupil cost is a little bit higher here because we have our elementary in a brand new building that has a higher per pupil cost than our high school that's from the 1950s. All right. Well, I think since it looks like the questions are slowing down, we're going to call that it. And we hope you all have a great summer, and we'll see a lot of you out at admin days.